What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to take a look at Costume Quest 2. And I want to pose a question, though, to start this video out. What is the best Halloween, I mean pure Halloween game? And I think the answer, at least in my opinion, but I think it should be universal, is Costume Quest 2. Now, there's plenty other horror games, and as we've talked about even for this channel, for the entire month of October, I'll be doing horror games and just games that resemble Halloween and stuff. And, there's scary games all over the place. But when it comes to, I think, capturing literally the magic, maybe not the magic of Halloween in general, because that does encompass the horrors and the scares and trick-or-treating, but see that part right there, trick-or-treating, actually going to people's houses and saying the age-old phrase and getting candy, the thing that many of us, maybe not all of us, but many of us did growing up, and I'm still kind of a part of it now. It feels really good to have a game where you basically do that. Now, the fun thing is Costume Quest 2, I think, is way, way, way more than literally just trick-or-treating, but I'm dead serious. When I think of the best Halloween, pure Halloween game on planet Earth, I don't think there's a better game than Costume Quest 2. So let's talk about it. So this game first came out back in 2014. Now, I was trying to rattle the old noggin up here as to when I first played it. I have played this game many times. I think this was like my third or fourth time actually playing it. The first time, I think I was in college, so like you probably have to go back maybe 7 or 8 years ago, which probably puts you around, 2015, 2016. So this game came out in 2014. Actually, I didn't know this. I didn't know this specific date. So it came out earlier on like PC, but then when it released on consoles and kind of, spreading it out to everybody, it actually released on Halloween Day, October 31st, 2014 is when this game came out. And I'm specifically, by the way, talking about the second game because I just think the second game is a better game than the first game. So I can remember playing this. I can remember being impressed by it. And as I've said, it's really become a staple for me. Not that I have to play it every year because, as I said, I've only done it 3 or 4 times. 8 years, let's say. It hasn't been every year, right? It's been maybe every other year. But this game is incredible. This game is really, really good. I mean, you can see it behind me when you see my face. But firstly, the aesthetic, right? How it looks. This is a game that I think can never look old just because of the art style. I think it looks so, so cool, so clever, and one of the main features of it, right, is literally the costume. So quests, as in, this is a game where you're choosing what costume you're wearing. They have their pros and they have their cons. You can upgrade them. They have to do sometimes side quests or sometimes find things, but you can upgrade the strengths normally of the costumes to make you more powerful, but you're literally playing dress up, and they each have their own thing about them that you will then use, not only actually, I was going to say just in battle. Well, it's not just in battle. You use it in battle, and you basically, it's persona, right? You like become a massive superhero, or you become whatever costume you're wearing. And this game actually has several costumes. It's not just a few of them. But not only do they handle themselves in battle, but they also handle themselves in the world. So you're going to go around, you're going to do main quests, you're going to do side quests, there's going to be collectibles, namely, at least most of the time, it's like finding children. They're playing hide and seek and stuff, and you have to find them. And then you can use the costume that you're wearing to solve obstacles. Sometimes there'll be leaves that you have to kind of get rid of or whatever it may be. I think that's insanely clever. So visually, fantastic. Gotta say, the sound, which actually we don't normally talk about sound design too much. I really gotta start doing it more. This game kind of lacks, I guess, in that department. It's no big deal. This is a very indie game. Double Fine, indie studio. This game specifically, very indie game. I'm actually a big fan of a lot of these guys' games. Brutal Legend, one of the all-time greats, which we should definitely do a video on that eventually, Jack Black, right? I'm not going to hold it against it too much, but there's really not that much here in terms of visual. It's a lot of reading, which is fine, because again, I think the art style kind of takes over. And I gotta say, the premise, while being a little cliche, like it's a mix of several things in pop culture that we've already experienced, is pretty clever. So the idea of it is basically a dentist wants to end Halloween, right? Because it's unhealthy, the teeth and all that jazz. So he uses time travel to basically erase Halloween, erase kids from wearing costumes. And, I guess the funny thing, though, is it seems to be very, not widespread. Like, you imagine maybe it's over the entire world, but really it takes place in such a isolated area. It's like, did he just kind of stop Halloween there? Or did he stop Halloween like everywhere? But he uses robots. He uses all this evil kind of stuff to basically force people into submission to not give away candy. That's looked at as like the devil. You don't dress up. That's also looked at as the devil. And you're trying to stop him. And you use time travel, the idea of going back in time, recruiting. You actually, I don't want to give it away in case people haven't played it, but you actually find him when he's a kid. And that plays a really big part in the second half of the game, or even, let's say, the ending, right? Kind of talking to and using his past self to defeat the future self. So I think it's very clever. It's also cliche, right? Dentist, and you always imagine, you see things like in movies or TVs, right? Where TV shows where there's a cliche or just the gag where obviously dentists are not going to be a huge fan of Halloween. So this is kind of taking it one step further. So the story's fine. The characters are pretty, you know, I don't want to say like one-dimensional. There's not too much of these characters, so maybe that's a little bit of a weakness there. But generally, you look past the rest of it and you say, okay, well, what about the rest of the game? The battling in this game, I think, is awesome. And I actually think it, you know, over time, it becomes a little bit more sophisticated. It becomes a little bit harder. It never gets to the point where you would look at this as a incredibly serious turn-based like RPG. That's not what it is. And like the enemies will get more powerful. They will attack you, and they'll deal more damage. It builds on top of itself. There's a lot of, in a way, quick time events where when you nail the button press at the right time, you will deal extra damage versus if you don't. There's also types of enemies versus what your suit is. So some enemies will be weak to some of your costumes. Some of them will be strong against your costume. So when you hit them, you'll either do, you know, the average damage or like the normal amount. You'll sometimes do more if they're weak to who you are, or sometimes you'll actually do less. Even if you nail like a perfect hit, you'll still do less because they're kind of strong to who you are. So, you know, classic, honestly, it is classic turn-based kind of combat, and I always appreciated that. I mean, honestly, I didn't grow up with that stuff. I mean, I've talked about kind of my childhood with Sly Cooper and Crash Bandicoot and things like that. I'm more of like a platforming, like my origin story as a gamer. I didn't really, in fact, I didn't. The Final Fantasies of the world, Chrono Trigger, like all these kind of turn-based things, never really touched them. So, and I've gotten more used to them as time goes on. Like, I'm okay with them, and I'm willing to play games that are like that. But even when this game first came out, I think that's a big positive. And I think they kind of had to do that too, because it is an indie game, because this game is already going to kind of struggle to make the mainstream, to make it some hardcore, you know, I mean, maybe that would work, as Baldur's Gate maybe has proved, like some things are not as much of a hindrance as like you might imagine, but I really like it because honestly, the first half of the game is really easy. Like, it's very hard to mess up. It's very hard to die. Like, you may have a teammate downed, but it's very hard to lose everybody, and healing is so easy with either eating candy after the battle or you go to like the fountain, and so it's very easy to stay healthy. You can swap the costumes in and out, and again, like I think that's the complexity, because as things do start to ramp up, as the enemies get a little bit stronger and you kind of have to plan things out, you might want to start to say with your team, okay, well, I want like a tank-like character, and then I want somebody who can heal, and then I want this or I want that, and you start to mix and match who's going to be on your team. And I think that's really clever, but it never gets to the point of being too sophisticated, too hard, and I really respect that. Again, I think as a package, this game does it extremely well. The visuals are catchy, they're different. A lot of this game is different. Like, the story, again, is a little cliche, but where else have you played a game like Costume Quest 2? Whether it is the story, whether it is the visuals, whether it's going around the world and using like your little, I don't know what they're like, the rollies on your feet or on your shoes, which, by the way, I think I had that when I was a kid. Obviously, I don't know if that's even still around, but that's a faster way of getting from point A to point B. You can run into people and start the battle. You can hit them kind of for an extra advantage in it. But again, there's some things you've seen before, but it's all under this umbrella of costumes, Costume Quest, but Halloween. Let's do it on Halloween. I believe the game actually, at least the beginning, takes place on Halloween. So I love it. I love the idea of this game. I love every part of it. The combat is really satisfying and cool, but never too hard, never too easy, all on its own. And then you just have a cool visual, cool story, using Halloween as the backdrop and really leaning into that. There's really no other game like it, and I think that makes it special. And so, yeah, I mean, and I don't know if I've ever said this. Honestly, when it comes to horror games, my favorite is probably Until Dawn, okay? I think of PT, I think of Amnesia as some of like the all-time greats, and also ones that would be maybe in like a top 5 list for me. Could probably make one. But I do think of Until Dawn as like my favorite. But Costume Quest, again, it's not scary literally in the slightest, but when I'm dead honest, every time I think of Halloween, every time we go into October, and back in the day I would do videos on podcasts now I would do like a Halloween month, I would do a Christmas month. Every time we enter this month, since I first played this game, the first game that I think of when it comes to the month of October, when it comes to Halloween month, first game I think of is Costume Quest. Every single time. It's not PT. It's not Amnesia. I think they're maybe better games. Until Dawn, I think, is a better. But Costume Quest is just so iconic to me. And it does something, as we've talked about, that none of the others, some of them takes inspiration from stuff. PT, a game like that, never really saw the light of day and turning into what it was going to be, right? Costume Quest just does things that no other game can. And honestly, when I think of Double Fine, oh my God, like I want a Costume Quest 3 so badly. I don't think these games ever did well. How they even got a second Costume Quest game, I have no idea. I don't think it sold well, at least in the grand scheme of things. It took them forever to make a Psychonauts 2, so am I holding my breath for a costume? No, I'm not. I actually would bet against us ever getting a Costume Quest 3. However, if we ever did, and doesn't Microsoft own Double Fine now? So if they ever convince them and Tim Schafer and all that to actually do a Costume Quest 3, oh my God, I'd lose my mind. That'd be super cool. So there you go. There's my thoughts on the game. As I said, October, we're going straight through horror games like this. Lots of other. I think we got 7 more horror games still to come in this October. Let me know what you think about Costume Quest 2. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, leave a like, all that jazz. And I hope to see you all on the next one.